Hey, I'm Melissa D. White from the Activation Hour, and I want to do a really quick tutorial on behind the scenes of how I record my podcast. And so I've received a lot of questions about the technology and tools I use in my business to make things run efficiently. So the average time of me recording a podcast could take about 30 to 40 minutes, just given however long it takes to record with my guest or if I'm doing a solo episode. And I use the app called Anchor app. Out of iTunes or Android store. And I absolutely love it. I don't profess to be a podcaster that has this super huge setup of technology within my studio. I literally run from a Yeti mic, Audacity free software. It's free for audio editing, and also this Anchor app. So just really quickly, I'll show you the tools that I use. In the middle here, you'll see the purple plus sign. You can invite your friends to join, which is the feature that I use if I'd like to have a guest on the show. So I click invite friends. It generates a link. Other thing I want to point out, I get a lot of questions about, well, how do I actually edit and add other sound effects and audio features? So one way you can do that is here. I add my interludes from this sound. I pick the custom sounds that I like, particularly for my brand and for the audio effects that I want for the Activation Hour podcast. However, they have a pretty extensive library here of sounds that you can choose from that just fit the feel of what you want to convey to your listener. Okay, so this is excellent for interludes or transitions during your podcast recording. Here are the additional sounds that you can add in, and these are some of my favorites, whether it's attention, chime, blings, things like that, to highlight an idea. Remember, podcast, because most people record podcasts audibly. I know several podcasters that do a video podcast, and whether it's either one, the sound effects amplify the imagination, if you will, of the listener. They also draw emphasis to what you want the listener to pay attention to. They add dramatic effect, and it just adds appeal. You have to remember, your listener isn't necessarily watching you on television or anything like that. So you're almost competing with the noise around them to continue to draw them in and listen and have their engagement and attention. And sounds help do that. Sounds are also memorable. Here's a new feature that I love in Anchor, where you can actually create a 30-second transition out of any song. This is playable in Anchor only through your Spotify account. I love this, because there are just some songs, I know we have challenges with like copyright issues and things like that, which of course respect to the artist. But if you want to use clips of songs that are your favorites within your podcast, you can do that here now. So again, I'll just give you an example. If you want to record, I'll do a sample recording just for the sake of our tutorial. You can hit record here. You just want to press it. Hey, this is Melissa D. White, your activation specialist and your activation coach from the Activation Hour. I just wanted to do a quick test and show you how I use Anchor to record my weekly podcast segments. It's super easy. A lot of the recordings and sounds are native to the app, and you can broadcast to tons of podcast platforms across the internet. So I'm going to stop this recording, but we're going to keep the fun and the learning going, because I'll show you how I add sound effects and to make it great. By the way, you can also add a flag. If there's a place you want to add a flag to pause, remember to go back and edit and add a sound, or if you want to insert a sponsored commercial or ad, like I'll add a flag here. And that flag will remind me to drop what we call a mid-roll or a mid-section commercial from your sponsors, even if it's yourself. If you want to shout out a program, a course, a class, or some of your own product or merchandise in your podcast, hey, it's your platform. Do that. Use your platform to promote your business. So I'll also add a flag to let me know to drop in my audio of a guest if I have a guest that's on the show, and any sound effects. So that's just a quick way to show you how to use flag. I'll stop recording there. Now, if I want to add my background music, I can do so. You can trim from the left-hand feature here if you want to make it longer or shorter. So I'm going to actually just save that audio. And I'm going to call this, I'll call it Anchor Podcast Tutorial. Misspelling. Okay. All right, it's saved. I'm not ready to publish, so be very, very careful about not hitting the purple buttons. Purple buttons in Anchor mean action. It means you're going to do something pretty important. So you want to just hit not yet. So there's my tutorial. If I wanted to add a sponsor segment, this is also one of my favorite things about Anchor, is that it will suggest sponsors to you. And typically sponsorships will go in what we call a pre-roll, which is the beginning of your podcast before you get into your interview or your topic, or you can do it as a mid-roll. If I want to move it around, have it as like a little mini commercial in the middle of my segment, I can do that. And if you want to drop in another soundbite or audio after the commercial, you can. Okay. Now, here's what it looks like when I actually go to look at. So there's my commercial with Anchor. All right. So just so you know what it sounds like. All right. So there we go. When I was trying to get this podcast off the ground, I had so many questions. How do I record an episode? How do I get my show on Apple Podcasts? Now, I'll show you a little about these buttons. You can, again, send this out. You can also add hand claps. Your guests can add hand claps here, which is a pretty cool feature. Okay, we're going to stop that. Now, I want to actually add in my recording that I just did, all right? Or if I want to go back to old recordings, I can do so. So here's the recording here from today, the podcast tutorial. Just want to hit the plus sign. Add it to this episode. Got it? Now I have my front, middle, and ending section of it. If you had, and typically podcasts do happen in 3 sections. You have your beginning, well, 4, sorry, your intro. So I do have a pre-recorded intro that I've done in here, and I'll show you how I drop in my introduction. And I can search because I have a lot of recordings on here. So you may see some guest intros. So I actually have the actual activation hour introduction. So I want my show intro, which is about 40 seconds. Now, mind you, you notice I'm not having to record my introductions every single time. I break them down into small segments just to tap and drop in. So every episode, I'm not having to do that. It saves me lots of time in the future. All right. And then if I wanted to do an introduction on a topic, I can add that in as well, or a guest introduction. For the sake of the tutorial, I'm not doing a guest, but if I had one, like say one of my guests here, Stephanie, if I want, I usually may read her bio or tell a little bit of a personal anecdote. You could do that. All right. Let's see, anything else I may want to add? I think we're looking good. So I want to X out, and now I have a full episode going here. I have my introduction, which is my first section. Then I have the first part of my actual topic or recording, my commercial in the middle for my sponsor segment, and my ending. So boom, I think we've got a podcast here, folks. So again, one of the popular questions was about adding in sound. So you want to go to your sound library. I love that it lets you preview the sound so you don't commit to it without knowing that it's one that you want to use. If you want to use a break, I like that one. It's kind of fun. So I may add that break in. Let's say I want to add that break right before I go to commercial. Let's see. Let me put my segments in order. You want to remember to save it. So if I want to do a quick break before the sponsored segment, I can do that. So I'm going to hit save. I'm not ready to publish. Again, you can add more, save, add more, save. Don't hit publish until you know for sure that it's what you want and you have it laid out how you want. So again, just my very quick tutorial to you on how I use Anchor for very easy in-app native recording. Now, some of you have asked, well, Melissa, what if I did not record in Anchor? Can I drop in outside audio? Absolutely, you can. There are times, especially if I'm sitting in the room with my guest or if I'm recording with just myself, I will hook up my Yeti mic to my laptop, record on Audacity, and let's just say I want to add an outside recording. I can do that. Let's say here. You can hit import. So you want to go to library and import. Okay. And then I would browse my folders. I use a Mac, so my Mac folders here. And so if I saved it either in GarageBand or if I saved it, you see where I have videos and webinars and all sorts of audio on here, or QuickTime Player, doesn't matter. But you can drop in outside audio. Just wanted to make sure I showed you that. So great. For more tutorials like this, make sure you click the link above and subscribe to my YouTube channel at the Activation Hour. Hit the section on tech tips from Melissa, and you can see more of the tools I use to stay activated.